Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is a podcast called Chatting in Cars. It's where I take random topics and I discuss them at length while I drive to places. It's a very simple equation. I think it's working so far. Right, there is a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because I do talk about sensitive topics and I do swear considerably. I am English. I am a ex-Navy's wife. An ex-Navy man's wife. I swear like a sailor. Yes, I swear a lot and I enjoy it. I'm unapologetic. Even though I was raised a lady, I am not one. Anyway, what is today? Today's Saturday. I'm on school holidays. I don't even know why I'm doing this. The topic for today is looking back. Now, when I'm talking about looking back, it mainly addresses when I'm talking about it. And I am very me-centric at this point in my monologue discourse. I'm addressing mainly people that have this mindset where they want to live in the now. And I'm like, I'm hesitant to live in the now at this point. I would prefer to keep a foot in all three, if not five, planes of existence. You know, you can't just live in the now. You can't just look at what you're constantly doing right now and then not make any plans for the future or not learn from the past or not look at it at an esoteric spiritual level. You can't just do that. It discards everything. I mean, look at what your ancestors have done for you. Every step that they've taken has led to you being conceived at all. You just want to live in the now and completely, ignore what they've done for you. And if you live in the now, you're not making any plans for the future. You're not considering what you want to do in the future. It doesn't make sense to just live in the now. This is how you get fucked up with no job or money. It's like, well, I just wanted to live right now. And right now is on this couch, doing fuck all and not bothering to further my life. So it's a bit fucked up to be assuming that is what your existence is about. I'm sure there's more meaning to it. I'm probably looking at it too literally with my autistic brain, but I just want to live in the now. It just seems to be a cop-out of the YOLO thing, Do you remember the YOLO thing a few years ago? You only live once. It's like, that just means you're just going to fuck around and, stuff up your life because you only live once. And it's like, well, you could at least make it a good one, right? If you only live once, I don't think you only live once technically. I think that, with my belief system, and you don't have to believe this because some people think I'm full of shit anyway, and some days I think I'm full of shit. You've got to look at it critically because we just don't know inevitably. But my viewpoint of the spirit comes more from a reincarnated side of things. The spirit's reincarnated, the body goes into the earth again or into the universe again, but the spirit gets sent to do other jobs as far as I'm concerned. Some people believe the spirit goes into heaven. Some people think it goes into hell. I just think it gets sent to do other jobs. If you have a premature death, you get sent to some other baby's body and you try and live again the lessons that you didn't manage to get done in the previous life, It's a constant learning thing for me. I do like the idea of reincarnation because, it's weird because you get those weird deja vu moments and you're sitting there thinking, I'm sure I've done this before. And you could be in a completely abstract place. You've never been there before in your life. You've never done these things with these people or anything like them before. But you felt like you've done it before. And that is a convincing element to me of what reincarnation could be. That's one aspect where I'm... Oh, speed camera. Hello, Mr. Police Person. I better get the pronouns right. I'll get in trouble. Police person. I said Mr., didn't I? Oh, I'm going to get so screwed. No, I'm not, because I don't care. Come on, people. We can't automatically know what everyone wants to be called, and then you can't get offended when people don't get it right. It's like, we didn't know. This is very weird. Anyway, to me, that's just an extension of ego to assume that people know what your bloody pronouns are and then to get offended when they don't figure it out off the bat, It's like, fuck off, mate. Ain't nobody got time for that. We're all too busy trying to get shit done and survive these days with all the lockdowns and everything. Anyway, I could go on a tangent about that. That's more to do with human ego and arrogance and assumption. I'm not going there today. What are we looking at? When the Queen died, I'm pretty convinced because she was one of my favourites. She was my role model. I love that woman. And Philip as well, because he was a nutter. He's a very dry, sense of humor, and yes, he was of the generation where he was completely racist. But things change, of course, and we pick up different understandings of things as we go along, but some people still are stuck in that era. And that's the point where we go, oh, granddad, stop it. And we go, yeah. And he thinks it's funny because it doesn't match up with what we currently do. And it's a big joke between, people. And we move on. We don't sit there and get our race about it, because eventually those guys die off. And you're like, okay, so the mindset has completely changed now. Kind of like shedding skin every 7 years or something. Ideas shed. Or, well, not 7 years exactly, but, it changes. You can't just assume shit's going to stick around. Unless you keep harping on about it. I do wonder. That's a different podcast. No, I'm not going into that. Let's just live in the here and now. But if you don't look back at your life retrospectively, you're not going to know what you need to get done in the now. I mean, most of my life at this point is looking back at shit I've done before where I fucked up and gone, well, I'm not doing that again. Or I've adapted it to suit better circumstances. Like with my New Year's resolution thing where I want to put myself into poverty. I'm not actually in poverty. I've got a teacher's wages, fairly decent. But at the same time, I want to take the skills and understandings I learned and I experienced in times of hardship and use them now when I know that I'm not needing them. And that will actually promote some kind of sort of growth and understanding and appreciation, hopefully, in what I'm doing now. And in the future, any money I earn now will be put towards getting a house and a roof over my head. So I'm not putting myself into poverty and giving up and not working and saying, oh, fuck it, this is what it is, so I can get a better understanding of it. One particular sociologist who comes to mind was Foucault. If you ever looked at Michel Foucault, I think it was back in the 60s or something like that. He either intentionally or unintentionally contracted AIDS in order to understand the stigma attached to age in the homosexual population. That is nutter to me. That is like, why would you purposely... But then again, did he understand the effect that AIDS would have on his body and things like that? Or was he looking at it from an abstract sort of social view only? I mean, I do wonder. I mean, surely he would have looked around at the gay population at the time. And unfortunately, yes, it was the gay population that got the bulk of it. It was horrible. Oh, and they're all panicking, and no one could find a way to fix it, and we're still having problems now. But surely you would have looked around and said, this isn't good for someone, or this isn't good for me, I shouldn't do it. He was a method scientist, as far as I can say. He got method acting. He was a method scientist, sociologist, I should say. He wanted to understand it from the inside. I mean, my example isn't as extreme as that. I've already lived that path, so I know where it goes. I know what it's like. Not with AIDS, but obviously with poverty. But I'm not going to go that way. I'm not that daring. I've never had an STD. I'm quite proud of the fact, particularly considering where I grew up. And the birth rate of girls getting pregnant in high school, my God. Birth rate, I don't know. Anyway. But I like that immersive side of things, and I want to understand what people are going through. But from an adult perspective where I can appreciate it more now, and I can maybe tweak it a bit to make it a bit more better. I mean, when you're in the moment and you're facing these horrible circumstances, and some people right now are absolutely green to this. They've never touched poverty in their life, and then suddenly they find that they're heading towards food banks and sitting on the welfare line and things like that, and they haven't got what they need, and it's just fish out of water for them. But I've got a background in it. I know what I'm doing. I want to make it easier. I want to take what was a horrible experience, which you had to do on the fly, because this is what you're working with now, and good luck for fucking everything. And I want to tweak it a bit more. So I'm taking that previous knowledge and experience and understanding, and I'm turning it into hopefully future understanding. So if I ever have to go into poverty again, or into the poverty cycle again, and it could happen, I'm not immune to that, I know that much. A lot of us are just sitting on paycheck to paycheck, and all it takes is an illness or losing a job or getting evicted or some shit like that to fuck you up completely in the future. And it's often sudden. I mean, I got evicted last year on my birthday. And that was all of a sudden, because my ex-boyfriend didn't deem it appropriate to tell me that we were getting evicted, so I had very little time to find an alternative place to live, and that was just him being a prick. But we managed, and I'm very grateful for the house I got. It wasn't even a house, it's an apartment, but it's a really nice apartment. And I was looking at it with the viewing, and I'm sitting there looking around going, I don't know if I can get this one. And I have the paperwork and the money and everything. But you know, you got that sense of, I don't know if I deserve this. It's really weird, because it was a really fancy apartment by my standards, all the things I'd lived in before. Everything was working. It was secure. I had a lift to get to my apartment, no stairs, and I'm sitting there looking around going, ooh. It's a bit of a Monty Python skit, you know. You remember those teapot, what are these? Pepper pot women. Oh, well, I never. And I was looking around the apartment with my hands behind my back, and I didn't want to touch anything. I've been in hotels like that, actually, where you go into this big fancy hotel and you think it's fancy, and some people walk around like, oh, it's a shithole. But you've never been there before, so you walk around in this hotel and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to touch anything. Oh my God, if you ever get a chance, go to the toilets at the Ritz in London. It's a masterpiece in itself. The ladies' toilets at the Ritz, oh my God. I lost it. I'm going, I want my house to look like this. It's crazy. It was one of those weird, horrible, well, not horrible, horribly expensive tourist things you do, where you spend and you don't want to think about it. I took my sister out to high tea at the Ritz. It's the first and only time I've ever done it, I think. And I'm nearly 40 now, but I recommend, if you ever manage to get your money together to go and do something like that, do it. Just to see what they live like, you know? Because some people go there for, oh my God, they just go there for lunch, like every other day or something. I was thinking, how the fuck are you doing this? It's expensive as fuck. But, you know, it's an eye-opener. And it's a beautiful building, oh my God. And the toilets are amazing. I appreciate a good plumbing system. No, it's beautiful. It's very Antoinette, is all I can say. If you ever looked at that movie with Kirsten Dunst, oh, I love that movie. Everyone hates it, but I love it. I mean, it's completely historically inaccurate, but, you know, it's so pretty, and I think that's what they wanted. It doesn't have to be accurate when it's pretty, come on. My goodness. But no, it's that, yeah. I'm going off on a tangent, sorry. But we need to start looking at plans as well, and you can't, I mean, even when you start like schooling, if you go for higher education or something like that, you're going to start planning ahead, because you have to plan what units you have to do in the future to you know, progress through the course and get your degree and manage to get what you want done. There's no point living in the now saying, I'm just going to do this unit now and that's it. But having said that, maybe some people say that living in the now bullshit because they don't want to think about the stress of what's coming in the future, and maybe they've got too much, you know, sad shit in the past. But you got to take the bad with the good. You can't just sit and take just the good bits and say, oh, this is my reality. It's like, no, that's toxic positivity. You don't want to do that. It's like, I only want to know about the good bits. It's like, no. Reality has a spectrum of good and bad bits. It's all over the place. It's mixed up and backwards and spiraling. You don't get to choose which bits you want to acknowledge. I mean, they even say history is written by the victors. That's bullshit. It's not these days, because everything's getting documented. I mean, you might say, you know, like, all right, for example, if you're looking at I don't know, this is a bit weird, but if you're looking at the Second World War with Hitler and stuff like that, the propaganda he was putting out was that the Germans were right. The Nazis were right, I should say. Not all Germans supported the Nazis. Keep that in mind, because Germans get a lot of shit for that now these days still, and half of them are like, well, we actually didn't support this shit. And yeah, and they often got imprisoned as conscientious objectors and things like that as well. No one looks into that side of things. Not all Germans were Nazis. It was like a bunch of Germans were Nazis. But the propaganda and bullshit they were spreading around was that they were the superior race and all that shit. It's completely wrong, because there is no superior race. Everybody's got their own strengths and perks, even speaking biologically. Some people are adapted to climes better. And if you're looking at that from a Darwinist standpoint, I don't know just how forwards or backwards that theory is. I mean, but you do get some sideways looks when, you know, people are able to eat more food than you and not get fat. Things like that. Your evolutionary stuff is pretty interesting. Would you put it down to genes, or would you put it down to where their bloodline came from? Or, what it is people taking things like Darwinism and making it racist and things like that, when realistically it was just looking at how people adapt to where they live at a particular time. I would look into it more in depth, because I'm not sure how much time it takes particular people or particular bloodlines to adapt to their circumstances. In terms of like structural differences, like, oh Christ, I'm trying to remember back to high school now. So like the Mongolian eye, it's like a patch of fat that forms under an eyelid of certain, I want to say, ethnic groups in areas where it is cold, and apparently that's meant to protect your eye. Inuits have it, as far as I know. Some Asian cultures, no, don't say cultures because that confuses it. Some Asian ethnicities have it. Apparently, according to Darwinism, that's an evolutionary trait. That's what we were taught in school. I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's just not a case of interbreeding with certain peoples. I don't know. And it also goes into sort of, eugenics and genetics and all that kind of crap, where you're trying to adapt a population to a certain area for the best outcome. Because, even in DNA terms, people want to survive. You want your genes to carry on. And that's what the biological side of being human is. This is why there's such a breeder mentality, which gives me the shits, because it's the only thing they want to do. And you're like, you gotta look outside this, dude. But, I'm going off on a tangent again, sorry. It must be my age. But, everything leads to somewhere. All the evolutionary traits and everything, it's not just a case of just living in the now, it's living in the future as well, because you can plan ahead. I've completely sidetracked though, haven't I? I haven't had any coffee today, that's the problem. I've considered it a luxury, so I've cut it off. Oh no. But the mindsets and the, sociological approaches to understanding time is always based on human benchmarks as well. I'm sure animals have no real set concept of time, here, now, past, present, future. They have no real concept. Everything they're doing is based on, survival, seasons, and adapting to the environment, I think. But I'll tell you what, squirrels know where they hid their nuts last winter. They're not stupid. So if the squirrels are hiding nuts in the present so that they know in the future they can come back to them for the past, then there's something to be said for that. They're not stupid. Don't just live in the now. It doesn't make sense. Because then they forget where they put all their food stores and stuff like that. It's all about prepping and getting ready for the future. People are afraid of the future as well, the uncertainty, and I think that's a human trait. Everybody's afraid of change. Varying degrees, of course. You can't just not be afraid of change because it's uncertain. We don't know how we're going to be able to adapt to perform for the future events that are coming. Or the experiences, and some of us have gone through particularly fucked up examples of experiences which possibly could have been avoidable, but generally were unpleasant. But we go through them, whether we have a choice or not, right? I'm just thinking like the inevitability of childbirth, knowing that you're pregnant, or if you manage to get it to full term. Some people don't. But that's coming, and somehow it's got to get out of your body. You plan for the future, you plan for the safest delivery, the healthiest delivery you can give your baby, because of course you want it to survive. You don't sit there and go, well, I'm pregnant now, fuck it. I'm just living the here and now. And when it happens, it might happen. I don't know. Are you serious? What kind of a parent are you? You plan ahead, don't you? Or maybe you'll ask around other people that have been pregnant. How did yours go? What did you get up to? What supplements did you take? I say supplements because I'm a gym junkie, but what do they call them? What do they call them? All the baby making pills and stuff. Or maybe you'll look at the practices other women did. And they're in the past technically because they've done it. They already know what they're up about. But you're in the here and now trying to figure it out so you can plan for the future. Fertility drugs and things like that. I don't know. But you know that birth is coming inevitably, even if you're hyped up to have this baby. Like, yeah, I'm really excited. You know that pain and the suffering associated with childbirth is coming, so you still prep to make it as easy and, dare I say, as pleasant as possible. It might work, it might not work, but that's a risk you're willing to take, isn't it? Because you want it to work. In theory, it should work, so we prep and we plan for the future. My ex-boyfriend, dare I say, hated making plans because he didn't want it to fail. He was afraid of failure. And I've done a podcast on this. There's no problem with failing, mate, just as long as you fail forward. Sorry, that was me getting rid of my visor. It was a loud bang. You want to fail forward. Don't just fail and fall backwards and give up and sit on your ass and cry. Well, you can cry if you want. There's nothing wrong with crying. But at the same time, you go up and you keep going. You reformulate. You get on with it. You give up, you've lost automatically. You keep trying, you're still winning because you're still finding, you didn't find one way that worked, but you found 100 ways that didn't work. Who was that, Benjamin Franklin? I think so. He's right though, because you can just use the process of elimination. It's like, well, that one didn't work, cross it off, try something else. But make sure you're crossing them off as you go. Don't just relive the same shit because you forgot to cross it off, or because you think, oh, maybe this time if I do the same thing, it'll work again. Again, that's the definition of insanity, doing something 1,000 times and expecting different results. I think that was Einstein. I don't know. See all this random shit that just percolates in my brain. I'm going to have to Google this. Don't take my word on it for Einstein's quote. I don't know. Or it might have been Edison. I don't know. Tesla? I don't know. Google it. That's why I love Google. All the information's right there. I could be wrong. And that's part of learning. Admitting that you could be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't care. Prove me wrong. I'd like the clarity too, myself. Don't live in the here and now. It's stupid. I can't stress this enough. As a nearly 38-year-old woman who's been through some shit, the amount of times I have to talk to these kids, and I say kids, they're only in early 20s to mid 20s. I say kids, but I'm like, I feel there is a strange amount of growth that you face in that gap when you're not just, distracted by trying to get laid or drunk. By the time you get to my age, you're like, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I'd done this. And you look back and you say, okay, so this usually starts at about 30 actually, as far as I'm concerned. I swear to God, as soon as you hit 30, your body starts falling apart. On the day I turned 30, I remember something happened. I think it was my hip went or something like that. It was ridiculous. I'm going, are you serious? But you start looking back and you're going, well, that was fucked up. So how can I fix it now so that it works in the future? Now I know that I lost my apartment because I picked my ex-husband who was financially insecure. And he was very unlikely to be a worker in any case anyway. He wanted to be a PT. He quit the Navy. PTs don't earn shit unless they're like celebrity PTs. And by PTs, I mean personal trainers, which is all the gym people. You pay a lot of money for someone to point at things and tell you to bend your legs. As far as I'm concerned, I have no real... But that's because I was married to one. I have no real respect for them. But I don't tell anyone. It's very expensive and they're very pointless. But no, you gotta have a living, and if that's your hobby or your interest, you should be able to go for that. But I just, having seen behind the curtain with my ex-husband, I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't respect them. If you can Google it, it's probably a better option. Google it for free. Can I get a sponsorship for that? But that's the thing. It's, you don't want to just... I knew I made the wrong decision in hindsight only, because at the time I was so in love and I wanted it to work, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll support you financially, and that's how you lose your apartment. That's how you go 10 grand into debt. That's how you lose emotional support and everything, because it turns out he was an arrogant, selfish asshole. He never really gave me any emotional support, so I made a bad choice in my mind as to keeping him around as my idealized partner. In truth, I should have chosen someone more stable, especially emotionally stable. One that wouldn't drag me down while he was milking me for everything I have. That's the thing, he dragged me down emotionally and took all my money and shit, and I'm like, this didn't work out well. But at the time, when he got me, I was 17, so I was so in love. And of course, this was this amazing man / boy. Boy, really. And of course, we're going to make it work, and it's going to be fabulous. As a 37-year-old woman, you look back and you go, what a fucking tit. Why did I sign up to that? So in the future, I'm planning for, if I do find someone again, it will be a lot more boxes I want checked, and I'll have a fuckload more questions to ask this guy. I'm going, yeah, right. Are you monogamous? Are you lying about being monogamous? Is there a chance you weren't monogamous in the past? All these questions can't come out. Have you got a job? Is it a proper job? Is it a casual job? What's your credit score? What are your organs like? You know, it's like there's so many things that open up your mind as you age. And you start questioning, are you going to help me in life, or are you going to be a problem for me in life because you don't want to grow up? It's a tricky slippy slope. I'd like to believe that the next one I end up with is like me. I've never shied away from responsibility or anything like that. I did get trapped with people who are irresponsible, and so their actions reflected my context and things like that. I mean, when we were applying for a car for him, my ex-husband, I was told very plainly that he was the liability. I'm going, well, you're not joking there. But at the same time, it's like, he needs a car, so I'm paying for it. So yeah, I need to be less emotional, and I know that from hindsight. I am a die-hard romantic, though it's terrible. But this time, I need to be more logical. As like, what kind of a person am I trying to emotionally get attached to? So in the future, I don't end up with another fucking liability like the last one. And I do have to actively remind myself of that. Because I do tend to want shit to work in a very fairy tale pretty kind of way. And it doesn't work that way in real life. As much as I would love it to. So when I'm talking to kids out there, and I say kids, it could be anyone. Because none of us really grow up. We never do. We just get bigger, with bigger bills. When you want to live in the here and now, please don't. It is unrealistic. It is unreasonable. You are going to be stuck with a load of decisions that you have to make on the fly that genuinely are not well thought out of, and quite possibly backfire because you didn't put the time and effort in to think about how this problem might have been formulated in the past. Have I addressed this in the past already? Can I adapt it in the now to make it work in the future? I just don't like the YOLO generation. It might be my generation. I'm technically a millennial, but at the same time, I was never raised that way to just think about the here and now. It seems unrealistic and stupid. This is how you get plagues like COVID going through. I mean, it was very similar to Spanish flu when it came out, and we had that ages ago, and we thought we adapted to that, but then people just didn't prep. They didn't look back at how that one affected everyone, and then we got this massive pandemic and lockdown, and it's like, oh wait, we've done this before. It's like, yes, you fucking dickheads. So why are we not acting on it like we did with the fucking Spanish flu? It's like, I don't know. So it's that kind of shit that gives me the shits, because I'm like, we've done this before. It's the same with like the Ukrainian war. We've done this before. I mean, a fascist dictator wanders into a smaller country that was sidelines. Holy shit, it's Hitler in Poland again. No, it's actually Putin in Ukraine. It's like, oh, we've done this before. Yes, we have. Can we do it differently this time? So it doesn't spread like a fucking world war? So I don't know. We'll see what we can do. I mean, the only thing I didn't foresee at this point was climate change. That's the only thing I haven't seen before in history again, but that's a new one because of the Industrial Revolution. That happened in 1800s. That's a new one. But I'm sure at some point we're going to be able to liken it to something in the past. We already have the past as a Bible, if you want to go that way, as to how to set the guidelines and rules for the future, but no one's looking at it in the same way because, oh, that was in the past, it's different. It's like, it's not that different, okay? Utilize it. It's an asset. It's like when we get all our old people are dying. They are an encyclopedia of knowledge. They lived life through shit that hopefully none of us will have to. We should be asking them how they did it. But, we just go, oh, it's old people, they're boring. Some people do. Some people actually embrace old people. Some people have got good grandparents. I'm looking back at my ancestors and I'm saying, I know what you guys have come through. I'm going to see if I can emulate that in my resolutions for this year, so I can make it work for us, so I can give us a good name on the whole. They went through some fucked up shit. I mean, I've got way back, I got Vikings. You can imagine what the fuck they went through. And I got the Irish going through famines and plagues and shit and poverty, getting evicted from their tenancies and things like that. And I got Cockneys, a lot of crime in the East End of London, a lot of poverty. Way back when, well, now it's full of other people. I don't know who at this point. I went a few years back and I'm like, okay, all right, different crowd of people, same problem. We can still fix this. But it's those sort of, it's your heritage. Don't deny your heritage as well. These people are in the past for a reason. Everything they've done has come up to keeping you, or making you alive, essentially. If your grandparents hadn't done what they'd done, you wouldn't be here. If they hadn't survived the shit that went through, you wouldn't be here. I mean, and they might hold it against us, or hold it over our head, but it's true. So we got to look back and sort of honour what they've done and see if it was any good for now, because I'm telling you, we're getting the same fucking patterns coming through that they did back when they were our age. If we look back at what they've done and maybe tweak it a bit better, maybe we can make it a bit easier for us now, and maybe our kids, if we have kids in the future, so it'll be a hell of a lot easier for them. Although having said that, I do consider convenience the bane of my existence at this point, because people are getting too swaffed. S-A-W-F-T, if you're into wrestling terms. And you can't teach that. But, you know, there's a way around it. And we got to look at all three areas. I won't go into the fifth dimension, fourth dimension at this point. We're just looking at the past, present and future at this point, because everybody in this podcast is a bit more 3D than 5D, I'd say. You're looking for practical solutions, and I'm looking more about the abstract esoteric thing as well, because I like looking at all angles. Right, I'm going to have to leave it there because I've got a nail appointment in 10 minutes. Oh, first world problems, right? I want you guys to have a fantastic day. I'm going to do another podcast on the way home, hopefully, if I can remember it. I've got a few errands to run as well. But I'm on school holidays, so it's not a problem. I'll make it up at some point. Still got 3 weeks left. Have a great one, guys. Keep it very chill. Take it easy. It's Saturday. I hope you have a great Saturday. I know I've got all my snacks and ration packs ready to go because I want to eat that. And have a good one.